there, ref. That she got the ball.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. Jack and Dave here to give our reactions to the Twitter sphere. And we're going to be talking about plenty of things. You know, the impact of change for Tottenham, the protests, the demonstrations. Looks like they did smashingly. So we'll give them their praise and just sort of reminisce and what seems to be some very, very good movement behind the change for Tottenham protests as well as the demonstrations there. And whether Daniel Levy is starting to shake in his boots in that regard. But then also, of course, we'll celebrate a win. We only have won so often recently, so it feels good to win. It also feels good to see those demonstrations do so well. Please smash the like button for us. Let us know your thoughts, after the game day yesterday. Do you feel good after a win? Wasn't maybe the prettiest, most dominating of performances, but at the same time, I thought it was well deserved. I don't think there needs to be too much, kind of read into that performance or anything like that. But some people do feel differently, which is why we do these Twitter reacts, because we get to hear different people's opinions, and Dave and I get to respond to them. Dave, how's the ankle holding up? And then also as well, how was the Indian last night?
Oh, the Indian went down superbly, Jack. It's been a long time. The Indian guy was very happy to see me. He's like, long time. I was like, look, brother, this club ain't winning. What do you want me to do? He gave me a hug. He's like, I'm glad you're back. You keep my business afloat. All of that sort of good stuff, So, the Indian went down very, very well, Jack. In terms of the ankle, do you know what? It's improving today, which is good. So, I'll be there in a day or two.
And unfortunately, everybody, you're going to have to hear even more Yank voice on my behalf. I'm feeling a little bit stuffy, having a bit of a cold come down, but we're going to power on through it. But I do apologize if my voice sounds even stuffier, even more annoying, and even more Yank than usual. Let's get to some people that are in here nice and early. Mark New has joined us. Big up, Dave and Jack. 3 goals and 3 points. I'll take it against a relegated Southampton, but we really do got to raise our game on Thursday for Frankfurt. Always speaking facts, I feel like Mark New is. And shout out to the Mark Army, as always. Limpy Down Under, good to see you. Tartan Spurs, how about you? How are you doing? Hope you're keeping well, Dave and Jack. Doing the best we can, my man. Hopefully you're doing all right. K32, Kieran's in here as well.
Just quickly, Tartan, how was your trip away? Didn't you go somewhere away in Scotland over the last week or something?
But it's a beautiful time, as spring is approaching, summer's approaching, but it's some wonderful Scotland landscapes. K32, Kieran's in here. Hello, Dave and Jack. Happy with the win. We'll take it. All that matters now is Thursday night. That's what Dave and I are getting prepared for. It's the biggest game, of the season. And we've, in my opinion, continued to do all right in terms of performances in these Europa League competitions. Yes, there have been some slip-ups here and there, but I think our form in the Premier League is actually quite different to our form in the Europa League. We did have that scare against AZ, but we made up for it completely in the second leg. And let's hope that we see a really good opening leg performance this Thursday night. Good fan atmosphere as well. Dave and I are certainly get up for it. I'm going to be channeling all of my possible happy clapper juices this week beforehand. So hopefully you guys can do the same. But without further ado, let's get into this one. By the way, everybody, after this stream, we will be doing a recap over on Big Up. Take a look at the highlights, react to them, take a look at maybe different moments that Spurs could have done better, maybe some scares that Southampton gave us, and give ourselves that full encompassing recap of the game so that we can sort of lock it up, put it behind us, and then move on to Thursday night. So we do appreciate you guys if you do follow us over there, because it does help us out a lot, but I think it's also something that we don't really get to do over here on YouTube for various reasons. And so I do encourage you to join us over there. But Dave, let's get into this one. Chefs are primo. I'm not sure how true any of this is, but might as well bring this up. And he said Daniel Levy was very concerned yesterday with the turnout of Change for Tottenham, the protest before yesterday's home victory against Saints, and has been seen as the biggest one this season. Levy is said to be holding meetings with the local council and police to ensure his and his staff's safety, as no criminal action is taking place. Spurs internally will struggle to stop the movement, which is gathering pace. How much belief do you give that, Dave, that Daniel Levy could be trying to put maybe a fork in the road or try to maybe increase, let's say, police presence or, some type of awareness maybe around the people that he's paying in the local Tottenham area?
Look, what I would say is I think it's actually common practice, isn't it, to, contact your local authorities and the police and let them know that there's a demonstration going ahead. So, I think that's just common practice. So I'm not going to read too much into that. But look, I do think, it will keep gathering momentum. The worse things get on the football pitch, so it's up to him. He can either change his ways, bring in the right players and get us back to winning games of football, which I think will quell the protest. But the longer we're going through this spell, the more and more people are going to join it. That's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Look, you're not going to protest if things are going well, are you? So,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I don't know if there's really that much concern that should be taken from that. If anything, too, like, change for Tottenham probably would even do. I'm not sure if they are. I don't think they necessarily need to, but they might even have to if the demonstrations become big enough. They would have to even alert, I believe, at least in the US, sometimes you have to do that. You would have to alert the local authorities that, you are going to be engaging in a demonstration or protest, especially when the numbers get that big, right? It is just sort of a good common practice, to do that. But definitely love the red alert from Chef Sar Primo there, making it sound like maybe it's a little bit, more concerning than it needs to be. Just want to say hello as well to Niall Higgins. Big up, lads.
big
Judgment
up,
Day
man.
Thursday. Keep
Yeah,
up the momentum. Definitely the right phrasing there. It is going to be Judgment Day for the Spurs team. And then Wemberley is in the house as well, Dave.
big
And
up,
he's saying
Wembley.
big up to you, lads.
Good to
Thank you,
see you.
Wemberley. Good to see you in here. And then Tartan
Peter
Spurs
Simon.
has gifted you or given you a response there, Dave. He said, up on the North Coast, 500 route, lads. Sun out, walks, and games of golf. De-stressing before Thursday night. Man, I wish I could
Wow.
join you for a nice game of golf. Tartan, it's approaching that season where I can start whipping the clubs out. I'm a self-taught golfer from my very, very brief stint in Texas. And then when I moved to New York, wasn't really able to play at all. So I had to take a little bit of a hiatus. But now that I'm back in Washington, I have been playing a bit more often, not really that often. I sort of go to the driving range every couple of weeks or something, when kind of the sun and the weather gets a bit better. But I do surprise myself every time and every now and again, with what I'm still able to do, on the sticks. Big up to you, Tartan Spurs,
Big
and
up,
I'm very,
Simon.
very jealous. Peter Simon saying Lee sounds like Levy's worried. I mean, he should be. This is a huge, huge protest. El Dante's in with us. Good to see you, El Dante. Dan Clark as well. And then Jimmy Hotspur. Spurs Insider Dave saying out for 2 months, comes back slightly rusty, and fans are writing him off. Been one of our most hardworking and reliable players this season, carrying the team for large parts of it. Crazy how short some people's memories are. I think this is a little too generous, a little too, yeah, maybe that's the right word, too generous to Solanke, because it's a mixed bag with him. And you and I were saying that it's like he's a conundrum right now as a Spurs player, because yes, I would grant, the fact that he has been sort of in and out with injuries, a lot this season. I do have some sympathy there. Richarlison too, right? Not really ever available to offer him competition or be that backup. But at the same time, he does some good things, Solanke, and then at the same time, 5 minutes later, he'll do something that really wrecks your head, right? And you definitely would never fault him for the work rate. You could never do that. Probably is literally the hardest working player in the team. It's just you and I have been kind of saying, he's a bit of a conundrum right now as a Spurs player, and this might be a little too generous from Spurs Insider, in my opinion.
No, look, I do have a bit of sympathy, maybe, and maybe there is an element that Dominic Solanke is struggling largely this season. You've got to remember, this guy isn't used to carrying injuries, right? He's used to playing from the start of the season all the way through. So maybe maybe there is a fair element to it that maybe, look, I don't think in the moment in the game when I'm seeing him on the football pitch that, maybe he is feeling the effect of some of the injuries that he's carried this season. And look, he is a player that works extremely hard, but I am getting to the point where why should I praise a player for being hardworking?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the bare minimum when you come to a football club. And I'm not being funny. If you want to play week in, week out, you've got to work hard, right? So I don't want to get down the realms where I'm praising him for all his pressing work out of possession and everything else. But I'll be honest, like, at moments, he gets on the ball, beats two players. I'm like, fuck me, I've got Harry Kane back. And then 2 minutes later, I'm looking at him like, it's Richarlison up front. You know what I mean? And it's just so hit and miss with Dom Solanke. But I'll be honest, where I think the massive difference is with Dom Solanke and where I'm not sure he's still the right guy or I'm not sure he's the right guy to take us forward is them half chances.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't create enough one-on-ones for him, but them half chances he tends to not take at all.
Yeah.
And I would argue there are a lot of strikers in the league that do take them half
Correct.
chances. I'd also argue I think players very much struggle to actually integrate him into their passing moves, build off him, play off him, and stuff like that. He's more or less just a lone ranger up front. I don't really see the midfielders working off him. I don't see the wingers working off him. And I think that's also a massive part of the problem. Look, I'm starting to get to the realms where I'm going to start calling him Donkey Solanke or Solanke, names like that. I'm really trying to refrain. But yesterday's game really pissed me off. I think we'll get into it on Big Up. We had 3 or 4 good breakaways. His
Yeah.
touches are all over the place. One of them, he barreled the defender out of the way. Next thing, he's fucking putting 2 knees up in the air. The ball's bouncing off. It's like, just show some composure.
Yeah,
But
no,
look,
that,
this is what I tried to highlight when we signed him, Jack. This is my biggest fear. I know he scored goals in his first the season before at Bournemouth. But I always said scoring at Bournemouth, and doing it at Tottenham is 2 complete different
yeah.
pressures, and that's where I think it might come back to hurt Dominic Solanke. And this move might come back to hurt Tottenham. And so far, I've been proven right. I was really disappointed with him yesterday because I've no doubt now he is so far out of confidence, and it's going to get to the point he's going to start snatching at his chances in front of goal and stuff like we've seen other players do. And I really wanted him to try and score and give him that sort of confidence heading into the Frankfurt game, but it didn't happen.
Oh yeah, Jimmy Hotspur is saying Solanke's confidence just seems to be on the floor to me. I think that's what maybe even connecting to what Dave is saying is like when your confidence can take a big dip when you're playing under the big lights, as a Tottenham Hotspur striker versus maybe when you're at a club like Bournemouth. But then he also saying, "Have you been suffering today after the curry, Dave?" I think Dave was the opposite of suffering after
No,
that curry. I think he was in heaven.
I've
Unfortunately,
learned.
I kind of suffered after the game. I caught a bit of a cold, which hopefully I can get over quickly because it's a very, very big week ahead. They're trying to throw me under the bus, ahead of this big Thursday night, but I think I'll be able to recover in time. Boom Shakalaka, great name. Saying, I tell you
Great.
what, though, we've scored a lot of goals this season. That's fair. That's fair. But I still argue we could be even more clinical. We could even be better going forward. It's kind of a misnomer of a stat, if you ask me. Jason Bell saying Solanke isn't being used well enough. He's also, though, not consistent enough. It's what we do to ask him. It's what we do ask him to do, though. Interesting thoughts from Jason Bell. Like I said, I think he's a bit of a conundrum right now as a Spurs player. Darren Johnson, evening, Jack and Dave. Big up to you,
Big up.
Darren, and then Dan Clark grabbing a Flat Cat
I
membership.
appreciate
Really
that,
do
Dan.
appreciate that, Dan. Thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks to
Really
all the
appreciate
people
that.
that have picked up the memberships recently or have also shared with us the member milestones. The fact that people are consistently reaching these like 30-month, 40-month, 2-year milestones. Really, really generous of you guys. And like we said, we have a lot of different opinions around the ups and downs of Tottenham Hotspur, but just the fact that we have this community of ours where we can feel like, we can express each other's opinions, have different takes on things. And then it's just about, sort of trying to enjoy and trying to get through the many roads and the many ups and downs of this club.
Yeah.
And I think we strike that good balance over here. So I do really appreciate that, Dan. And hopefully you enjoy some of the perks that come with being a member of the channel. And Tartan Spurs saying, however, it is fair to say that strikers at Spurs don't get the quality service. Perhaps why Dominic and Richarlison has struggled. I'd argue though, like with
I think,
Richarlison,
yeah.
like
Go on.
Richarlison last season, like did actually quite a good job, of taking some of those half chances that Dave was talking about. Like there was certain moments where Richarlison did quite well,
He had a
in some of the
massive run, didn't he? Didn't
yeah,
he have a run over December,
yeah.
January sort of period where
And
he's on fire?
Solanke hasn't scored any of those type of goals for us this season. I'd say that
The thing is
Richarlison
with
did in that month.
The thing is with Richarlison as well, I'll be honest, I think he puts himself in great positions when we get the ball crossed in as well, He scores different types of goals for us, Richarlison. He's a guy that when the ball comes in the box, you often see himself flying at it, you know. Look, I would argue, I actually think Dominic Solanke or Richarlison has done better than maybe what Dom Solanke has with the minutes that Richarlison played more so off last season, 100%. But I think he done better up front than
And
what
he's
Solanke
effective on the
done.
wing, Richarlison, I'd say. He's useful utility player, works hard. Um, yeah, Dave, I'd agree with that. I just think, yeah, Richarlison, but this is the thing, though. Richarlison is just never available. So it just feels like, the road is up with him in that regard. Carlos Blanco, Solanke literally gets no service. He scored more good goals. We don't even cross the ball into the box. It's all along the ground. Yeah, a lot of different takes on Solanke at the moment, but I do appreciate the sympathy towards him as a big Solanke fan myself. But I do have to be fair. I don't think he's really doing as well as he could be. Outer Esfasare, sun's out, banners are coming out. See you at 12:15. Look at those great
Yeah,
images there, and also those great banners there. Holly Agambar was class work by Change for Spurs and all these all those behind the scenes for all the work you are doing. Enjoyed showing my support
yeah.
yesterday, and there is
Well done.
Holly with the great Time for Change banner and also a good image there on top of that. Jai P saying, I can't get over how bad Spurs were in the second half. Disgraceful performance, but a win is a win. I think disgraceful is a bit of a strong word there. But I mean, Dave, some people were upset with that second half performance. I mean, would you go as far as disgraceful? I don't think that's a little harsh in my opinion. But and also because Solanke did have those chances, to make it 4 or 5-0.
Look, we had chances in the second half on the breakaway that if we were a lot more clinical than what we've shown, in general over the last 2 years, I think you put them to bed, to be honest with you. I think any half-decent team does anyway. Look, to a degree, I do think the second half performance was disgraceful to a degree. Look, we should have went at them. We should have tried to kill them off, even for the first 15 minutes in that second half. Go at them, get the third, get the fourth, put them to bed. And then after that, I think everyone would go, do you know what? Scored a few goals. I can understand people may be taking it easy. But, there's one question I throw out there to the people watching today, and it'd be interesting to hear where people sort of put the responsibility, because coming out of the game yesterday, everyone was blaming Ange Postecoglou, saying that he's told them to sit back. You don't do that against the worst team in the Premier League. But then I was listening to Alan Pardew on TalkSport last night, who's been a manager in the Premier League, been in this situation, and he was sort of saying, he says, look, if there's a big game midweek, he says, no matter what I've told my players, sometimes they make the decisions themselves, even subconsciously, to take it a bit easier with one eye on the game midweek. Despite me telling them not to sit back and stuff like that, that can happen. So, I want to know out there, listening to that, so it gave me a different perspective. I was like, do you know what? For instance, if I'm James Maddison, or not even James Maddison, other players where I picked up a lot of injuries this season, and there's our biggest game of the season is Thursday night at home. There is times where you go, do you know what? I won't press that one, or I won't make that tackle and stuff like that. So look, I want to know where people stand on that, because I think Pardew brings up a great point. To be fair.
Yeah. Jason Bell saying, I zoned out during the second half. I don't even really remember it at all. Artist T, good to see you, saying, sadly, Ange and Levy have broken me so much I didn't even feel anything after yesterday. Only a Europa Cup win will change that. There are probably plenty of people in your boat, Artist T. I just happen to be a loser where I'll just take any win of any kind, really. And it does lift my mood somewhat. But then again, I ended up feeling a little bit sick after the game, with a bit of a flu/cold. So who knows? Maybe I need a little bit more in me. Artist T saying, Mateta is the guy you want with the service that we provide. I mean, I think the argument is that we don't provide service, Artist T. But the other thing with Mateta is, I'd say a bit similar. Like, I think he is. David knows this. I love the donkey clunky strikers. But I think Mateta is kind of a bit similar, where he's a big man, sort of bounces his way around, but he can be a bit clumsy himself. And I don't think his link-up play personally is really that pretty, to be honest. But I do like the guy because I remember him at his time at Mainz, and I thought he actually was a decent striker at Mainz 05, the club there in the Bundesliga. So I've always liked Mateta. It's just I'm not too sure, if he's exactly the player that we need to, again, sort of replace that Harry Kane sort of a sized hole, really. But he's a good striker at the end of the day. He is a good striker.
Yeah, he's a donkey. Look, a striker like him, just put the balls in the box, let him go and attack them. You can't play off him, can't play into him. Useless.
Yeah. Martin Cloak saying, after the Aaron Ramsdale incident, here it is, Ramsdale taking the ball away from Dominic Solanke, using his hand outside the penalty area, yet escaping any card. Martin Cloak saying, I think we need something like VAR to ensure no mistakes or controversies occur. I mean, Dave, it's just two different stories, right? Between, the VAR that's used for some teams and the VAR that isn't used for Tottenham Hotspur. Some people were making that point.
Honestly, the way I feel it's used, when VAR is used for some teams, it's looking to give them something. When VAR is used for Tottenham, it's looking to rule out something. That's the way I feel, and I felt like that for a long time. I go back to West Ham under Jose Mourinho, where they spent, I think, nearly 40 minutes trying to make a decision, one day, and it was a clear handball, given every other game, bar Tottenham against West Ham. There's another one against Newcastle under Jose Mourinho as well. They took 20 minutes to find a penalty for Newcastle and shit like that. I'm absolutely fed up with VAR. I've been very consistent from day one. I do not like it. The whole disguise of VAR is that it's going to clean up the game. It's going to come to more direct decisions. It's going to take the argument away from decisions and the debate around decisions. I'd argue it's caused more controversy than a referee making a decision on the football pitch. And, they say it takes away the subjective nature or how the individual interprets. Well, yeah, that's okay if it's an actual computer system making the
Yeah.
decisions, but it's people operating the computer system, so it's not actually, clearing up the game. All you're doing is getting two more people to re-ref the decisions and stuff like that. It's absolute bollocks. We have been conned by it as fans, and I hope fans wake up to it. It's getting to the point where it's destroying game. It's killing momentum. It's killing passion out of the game. You look at the Chelsea decisions the other night, 4 or 5 minutes per decision. It is killing the game of football.
I mean, here's a further time to put on the tinfoil hats, Dave. Spurs Extra saying, how can we believe there's no agenda against Tottenham when they check an offside for 6 minutes, but Ramsdale's handball isn't even reviewed at all? What is going on? I mean, that's a very good point from Spurs Extra. It is kind of insane that they don't even take a moment to just look at it for at least a minute to make a decision there. But then the offside is being drawn up, for more than 6 minutes. Yeah, it's a fair point.
I do think the club, though, Jack, to a degree, sort of allow this to happen. We never ever come out, lay the blame at the referee's doors or really question the decisions, put the pressure on PGMOL. Never ever do. We sort of just accept the decisions, we move on, it is what it is. You look at, a lot of the teams fighting around the top, or a lot of the managers that have been fighting around the top, always come out, put them under blast. And what it actually does is it tends to give them the rub of the decisions then going forward. Whereas we just sit there and accept our fate, and it can't keep continuing like that. We are partly to blame. I think Postecoglou was trying to allude to it the other day before the game, that you don't really see pundits sticking up for Tottenham. They don't really get a fair shake of the media and stuff like that. And this is an area where I do think the club should come out and sort of highlight and back themselves. Was it Nottingham Forest or Arsenal that not so long ago put together a whole season of fucking things, put them towards the PGML and stuff like that, and it's like, just feels like we just accept this. Where's the club coming out today questioning that off the back of the massive decisions in the Chelsea game, etc., etc.? It's an absolute joke.
Where's that competitive nature, right? To sort of, at least battle back in some regards, stand up for yourself in some manner. We want to welcome in also DJ AK. Big up, lads. Eased off in the second half with one eye on Thursday is understandable. Really, come on, you Spurs. He's saying, P.S. Dave, that's an old school top you got on there. Yeah. It's a class one. I think Dave's been rocking it a lot.
DJ. I'm just going to start getting retro Tottenham tops and Ireland tops and stuff. I'll be honest, I don't like a lot of the new jerseys. They're not made for big guys like me. The retro gear is. And I'll be honest, I'd rather go and get the retro gear. I think it's a lot nicer. So it's my way of protesting the new skinny kits and the way they're designed them. I think there's so much lack of effort into them compared to some of the kits and the colours and all back in the day. So it's my way of protesting, DJ.
And as well as Jimmy Hotspur saying the second goal was canceled because his Rolex was offside.
Honestly, that the controversy from that decision, it's so inconclusive. You give the goal then, you know.
Change for Tottenham, our club, our future. Some great images there, and just credit to Change for Tottenham again for turning out another great mass protest, but also just so many good numbers. Seemed like very well organized. Love the use of the banners all over as well. Just very well done. I can only applaud.
No, do you know what, Jack? I have to say they've done an absolute great job Change for Spurs in terms of, getting people on board and getting them down. They've just hit the message and let the message to carry it all the way, and slowly just let people make their own minds up of what they're seeing in front of them and then make their own minds up to get down, And I think they've done an absolute brilliant job. And I do hope, people can continue to get behind it going forward because, where this club has been this season, but ever since Pochettino, should never have had this drop off, shouldn't be sliding off like this. There's so much wrong at the football club, and the only way of really sort of getting stuff done is by putting mass pressure on them. So fair play to Change for Spurs. I think they've gone about it the right way, and you're getting people down behind it, so credit to them.
Ian Ferguson saying can't go wrong with the retro gear. Ripped to my bank account though. You would argue though, like the new kits these days are
not if you know where to get them.
Almost as expensive, Ian. And feel free to reach out to Dave. He's got some sources. He's got some
classic
for you to go.
Football shirts. Classic football shirts.
You'll find some good deals, my man. You'll find some good deals. Tartan Spurs agrees on the vintage shirts as well, Dave. There's a lot of oil and PGMOL, says Limpy Down Under. And then Artist T saying, I think it was disgraceful too. I think he's talking about that second half. Even a mediocre team would have gotten a draw or gotten a late winner with that second half. I think earlier he said an average team would have either drawn or gone ahead in
Mm.
that second half. I mean,
Yeah,
Dave, do you agree? Like, can you make that case that
yeah.
if it were not Southampton, let's say, I don't know, let's just say Crystal Palace, since we were talking about Mateta from earlier, would a Crystal Palace have made a late second half comeback against us with the way that we played?
Yeah, I think any half decent team would have. Like, look, the thing is, Southampton aren't great going forward and leak a lot of goals. You know, we are the
Yeah.
first worst team, officially the fourth worst team this year, outside of Ipswich, Wolves, and Southampton. We've lost the most games this year. You know, so even the stats will tell you a half decent team probably would have took something from that yesterday, 100%.
He also said as well, Artist T, thank you for the support, by the way, my man, saying, I'd say it was a mix of Brighton vibes and us just not being good, such as things we saw during that multi-month long losing streak and what we've seen since the Ipswich meeting. I could agree with that, you know, started off very quickly, came out very strong in the first half, and then just sort of petered out in the second to some extent. So I do know where you're coming from on that one, Artist T, but I guess you can only beat what's in front of you. Southampton are a terrible team, and we were able to take advantage of that. And maybe there was one eye on Thursday as well. You know, once they found themselves 2-0 up, right? Maybe there was that sort of eye on Thursday, but 2-0, it's a dangerous, dangerous lead, as people have
It's
said. It's the classic cliche. And Spurs, they
the
kind
most
of seem
dangerous
to rest
scoreline in
on their
football.
laurels on that 2-0. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Sorry, Dave.
said 2-0 is the most dangerous scoreline in football, Jack.
Yeah, exactly. But I do see where you're coming from, Artist. No disagreement here from me on that one. No disagreement from me. Brighton as in becoming cocky. Maybe so. Yeah, like resting on that 2-0 lead, thinking that, you know, the game was over, that Southampton wouldn't want to come back. You know, I think you're right, Artist.
Mm.
Lily White Lab, Dave. I don't agree with this one, but, you know, I have to bring this stuff up because I saw a few of these type of tweets. We're genuinely going to end up missing out on one of Europe's top forward talents in Mathys Tel just because we couldn't play him in a role for his skill set, and now we're not even integrating him in full stop. Going to have huge regrets on this one. I mean, what has Mathys Tel though really shown in the times that he has played for us really? And we've played him as a left wing, we've played him as a striker, played him on the right at 1.2. He hasn't been given a ton of minutes, but he's definitely been given some minutes. I don't think he's really ripped up any trees, you know. So I'm a little confused sometimes where these takes come from. He hasn't really shown enough for me, actually. It's been like flashes and moments, but nothing
Yeah.
really to actually build off of.
Look, the thing is, could Mathys Tel very well develop somewhere, you know, hit a good purple patch and really kick on? Yeah, of course, you know, you can make that case. But I look at where we are right now at Tottenham and what we need right now at Tottenham Hotspur. And I'm sorry to say, but he's nowhere near good enough. And we shouldn't be sanctioning the 60, 65 million, whatever it's going to take to get him here in the summer. We need another striker in this football club. We need another right winger in this football club. We need another left back in this football club. Probably another centre midfielder as well. Pissing about 65 million on a guy who's already proven that he hasn't been able to do what we've asked him to come here and do is almost going down the Timo Werner route, except for you're actually paying for it. You know, so for me, I don't want to see us sanction that money. I tried to highlight it again in January. This guy isn't the guy that we need right now. We need a guy that can come in and unlock the door, provide goals, or come in and score goals. And you know, there's been a big debate around whether he's a striker, he's a winger. He's had both. He's played in both positions at Tottenham. I'll be honest. I've been very, very underwhelmed with him. There's one bit of skill, you know. I remember where I think he jumped through two players, and I think did he get the shot off in the end? I think, but it was very underwhelming. But the reality is, we've bought for the future for the last couple of windows. Where has that got us? 14th in the Premier League. So for me, where we are right now, use that money to actually bring in someone that is better than what we've got in the first 11 so that we can actually start building a proper squad. If we had a squad together and we had 65 million to piss about, I'd said, you know what? Just because of the potential, yes, sanction it. But where we are right now, there's no way we should be buying them.
Yeah. And just wanted to say hello to Dizzy Bell, saying I agree with everyone else and that we would lose that game. And then she also is saying I only do retro. Love that statement there from Dizzy Bell. Good to see Ewan in the house. Ewan Hassami, great name. By the way, Ghosted is in here. Big up to you,
Big up,
Ghosted. Saying
Ghosted.
big up Dave and Jack and everyone in the
Good to see
chat.
you.
Thanks for joining us. And then we also
We
have
got Ryan
Ryan
G.
G in the
Haven't
house
seen
as
him in a
well.
long time. How are you right now?
Yeah, good to see my Ryan Army growing strong. Mari saying he's limping. Hopefully it's nothing too serious, though, and he'll have a good rest until Thursday. Sonny potentially limping after the game, Dave. I mean, it's not a good sign, but perhaps it's just a knock or just some soreness, you know, from the Chelsea game and from the Southampton game.
I just wondered, you know, when he went to take that shot and the defender came across,
Hmm.
Sometimes when you're putting your boot through it and you go to hit that ball and the defender comes across, it can sort of almost do something to your foot where you like pick up a
Reverberate.
little
Yeah.
muscle injury or
Yeah.
a little sprained ankle and stuff. But I would argue he probably, with all the medics around, well, actually, no, not the top of the medical list, but if we send him down to the local GP round the corner, he probably should be able to get it sorted out.
Let's ship in those Argentina medics, for Sonny right now. Faz Radfar, good to see you as always. Big up to my favorite channel. Thank you, Fazzy, for supporting us as long as you have been. And let's keep this moving on to Rocco THFC saying people are angry with this. We won. We got 3 points. We moved up 3 places. What more do you want? You complain when our style of play doesn't work. So Ange tried something less attacking today, and it did work. Now you say that, oh, that's so boring. Does nothing please you? Find
Now,
this to be a little bit, again, like generous, of the performance.
do you?
I take the 3 points, Dave. 100% take the 3 points. But then to sort of complain, at fans, making little criticisms, is just again, you're like, there is some room for nuance. Like you can be happy with the 3 points, but then you can also say that, yeah, Spurs really weren't that great in the second half and potentially could have, lost the lead to a better team. I think there's some room for interpretation there.
No, I understand, but I think maybe what he's getting at, or this is my interpretation of it, is that, people have asked us to not be so gung ho, see out games and stuff like that. Well, if that's what we did do yesterday, well, then, why are them people complaining? That is what they've asked for. And then they'll go, oh, well, it's Southampton, worst team in the Premier League. I get it. But that's like me saying to my missus every day when she goes to shop, pick me up a whole nut bar. And then randomly just going, why did you pick me up that today? I wanted a Galaxy bar. I never told you that, but that's what I want. And then argue with her over it and stuff like that. It is becoming to the point where people are almost forgetting what they've asked for. They hate Ange Postecoglou. And this is Ange's fault, by the way. But they hate him so much, no matter what he does, they're going to lay criticism at his door, even if it is contradictory to what has been said beforehand. However, I'm not defending Ange, but I am just saying it is coming to the point where it's almost impossible, for it doesn't matter what he does, for large parts of the season, people are moaning about rotation. As soon as he rotates, what are you rotating for? Blah, 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 blah. And it's just, honestly, we're at the point where we were with Conte, with Nuno, with Jose. And this isn't the defensive Ange, by the way. I fully agree with, that he's got to do a lot better with what he's got. Could he change things up at certain times and all that? I sort of resonate with that. But this is where I don't resonate with it to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm. Kaylee Davis, morning to you. How are you? Hopefully you're keeping well. And then Artist T saying, how was your Indian, Dave? And how was the Mexican food, Jack? Unfortunately, I had to take a big nap, and then
It's good.
he was starting to feel a little bit sick later on in the day, but I was able to make it over to my parents, and I had a lovely adobo sort of style pork. It was very good, kind of in a sort of slow roast, type of pull apart type of pork. It was very, very delicious, Artist T. And then Dave, I think you brought up earlier, how good the Indian was, but I found it more hilarious that, the guy was like, where have you been? And it's like, listen, man,
He's hugging me.
hey, there's only so much I can do here. Spurs got to win before I considered the takeaways. So we just need Spurs to start winning, and then the local Indian takeaway will start doing better.
Well, I started joking with him. I says, look, if you actually went and bought Tottenham Hotspur and turned us into a winning team, I'll be down here every 3 days. So, maybe you can help us out right now. We are looking for new ownership and like that. But no, look, it went down really well. I didn't have anything to eat all day beforehand, and I haven't had anything to eat since. So it's come into the system, and it's going out of the system absolutely lovely. It's not hanging around and stuff like that. So it's absolutely great.
And then Artist T saying, I was in Germany and Switzerland over the summer. I got a young boys kit, and then I regret not getting a Frankfurt kit. Frankfurt does often have pretty cool kits, I will admit. But being in Bern, Switzerland, I mean, it's a gorgeous, beautiful place. I've never been to Switzerland, and I've only really been to Berlin and then Leipzig, and then as well as Munich. Those kind of 2 times in Munich and Leipzig, it was all right. I'm actually a big fan of Berlin, though. If you've ever made the trip over, Artist T, it's by far my favorite city in the world. But it sounds like a lovely, lovely time in Switzerland. The only problem I have with Switzerland is, even as someone who at one point passed a proficiency test in German, I cannot understand a single thing that the people in Switzerland are saying. It's just a ridiculous accent that they have over there. Johnny H saying, what are your thoughts on yesterday's penalty fiasco? Brennan Johnson chasing his first Spurs hat trick, breaks free, and Wellington chops him down in the box. It's an obvious penalty. A great chance now to get his third right. Nope. Porro takes the ball off him and gives it to Mathys, or to Captain Romero, who then gives it to Tel. Dave, Cuti Romero, was the captain once Sonny was taken off the pitch. Romero seemed to acknowledge or indicate that, this is the designated penalty taker. So I don't really see much wrong with it now that I got further context, about the fact that maybe Tell is supposed to be the penalty taker. But at the moment, I didn't know who the designated penalty taker was supposed to be. So I was a little upset, with Tell taking it. But the fact that Romero was the one that handed it to Tell, perhaps the right thing was done at the end of the day.
Yeah, look, I love the way that Poros handed it straight to Romero. Straight away, that shows me no one's arguing with his decision. That's why it's gone to Romero. You'd make the decision, because no one is going to double question him or anything like that. Because the minute they do, I can guarantee you, once to get in the dressing room, he'll have that sorted out nice and quickly. So I find that absolutely hilarious, and it sort of confirms the way I feel about Romero. But look, do you know what? I get it, right? Premier League hat-tricks don't come around all day and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, if we miss that, they will get the momentum to go up the other end. And it's just our luck for the ball to be put in the back of the net. And it's 2-2. So I do agree with the decision. If Tell is the designated penalty taker and he's better at taking penalties than Johnson, then by all means, he should take it. I'll also argue people can moan and cry about Johnson not taking it and getting his hat-trick. But, that's payback for all the times where he didn't track back, against Man City and take the player out. Some of the other goals that we've conceded this year where he's failed to track back, or, even just do the simple things. So it's punishment. You live and you learn.
Sauce Bergval, Dave, important home win. Time to keep the momentum going. Come on, you Spurs. Outer as Fasara saying, we are not stopping. Great image again, just outside the club shop in the stadium, too. That's one of the better ones I've seen. And then Richard Cracknell, Dave, Mr. Crackers, saying, well done, VAR.
Honestly, it's just disgusting, Jack. Honestly, it's disgusting.
I should have put that one on the thumbnail. I actually forgot about that image. Hotspur reports, it's time. This time it's different. Numbers are increasing. Well done to everyone who attended. Another great picture via the Billy T. Harry Scarf, a concerning performance from Solanke today. He just hasn't been the same since the injury. It was non-existent for most of today. Dave, I think you might be agreeing with our young man, Harry, but I just say, Solanke would have done himself a favor if he just put away those two opportunities that he had on the breakaway. Then maybe people would have spoke about his performance a bit differently, but he didn't put away those chances. And then he also had some clunky moments. So I think Harry Scarf's right. I think Harry Scarf is right for the most part.
But that's the thing. Does he have the ability to put away them chances? And I'll be honest, from what I'm judging him at Tottenham Hotspur this season, he doesn't.
Yeah.
And I honestly, the more and more I see it, the more it's killing me that we sold Harry Kane for 100 million and spunk 65 million on this guy, leaving you a difference of 35 million. I mean, it absolutely kills me. Look, Dominic Solanke was never ever going to be Harry Kane, but
still beneath your expectations at the moment.
Way beneath my expectations of what I expect as a striker. Yeah. I'm really trying my best to give him every opportunity to succeed. I don't want to jump on his throat too early and stuff like that. But he's just pissing me off every game now.
Let's go to Johnny's post here, Dave, and check this one out. This was the goal. Lovely finish from Johnson.
That's
by
good
the
from
way.
Solanke. That's good shit house. It's a great finish.
Great header from Mathys, and it's a gorgeous finish from Johnson. You're right.
Just a lovely little poke, that he's thought about that as well. The ball looping over, he's obviously thought where he thinks Ramsdale's going to go, and he's just poked it into the bottom corner. I'd almost argue Harry Kane-esque finish that.
Yeah, really just delicate touch from him. Really well played. Ian Dark, who I believe is a match commentator, the guy gives you the actual sort of play-by-play during games, saying only way Ange Postecoglou can stay at Spurs is winning the Europa League. I'm in a minority, but I find his grumpy, strained relations with the media quite amusing. He can't help saying what's on his mind. No one would care if the results were better, but they are not. His position would become untenable without a trophy and with a bottom half finish. Well, he's coming out strong, Mr. Ian Dark.
Look, if he was if we were winning games, then the questions would be a lot different to him, right? You know what I mean? So it's sort of like, yeah, of course, no one cares if we're winning games. That's ultimately what we want to do at the end of the day. But I sort of do agree with him. Bottom half finish without picking up a trophy. Yeah, I think the writing's on the wall anyway. Like we keep saying, it's just a matter of if or when rather than if.
3-1 win, Tell goal, Bergval masterclass, Gray midfield minutes, Romero and Porro very good. Relegated Ramsdale, very, very happy. This was Dave on his way to the Indian last night.
That was me and the Indian guy when we seen each other for the first time since February, Jack. That was me coming into him.
And I think that might be it. I did have some ones just quickly over on. Just give me a second here. if it's able to pull up for myself. I did have some extra funny ones that I can add to the list here. Just bear with me. Ein Moment. But really appreciate all the support today. Thanks you guys for following us over. And then also, by the way, everybody, as you might know, after the stream, we will be over on Big Up to do the highlight reaction, so we can do an all-encompassing sort of wrap up of this game. Billy saying Sun's out, Levy out. That's what made the title and as well as the thumbnail. Ayudi saying the way Lucas ran to his captain to celebrate his goal, VAR can F off.
Yeah, it's a joke.
Here it is, Dave. Let's see it.
By the way, Romero was such a threat yesterday in their box. Oh, it's a great picture.
Lovely to see. I much prefer Jet Spence on the left. He looks so much better there. I'd have him and Poro as the starting two fullbacks for the rest of the season. Say what you like about Pedro, but Udogi's been even worse this season. Dave, Thursday night, who's your fullbacks?
Look, I would go with Destiny Udogi off the left and Pedro Porro out the right. Just give yourself a bit more defensive stability. I do get what you're saying. Spence and Porro are our best fullbacks in possession. But Porro is a liability defensively. He didn't get caught out against Southampton because, they're shit. But a better team, we've seen time and time again, will pummel that side and it comes back to bite us.
Yeah. And then Spurs Watch saying, what did you make of Tyler Dibling's performance against us, considering he has been linked with a big money move? Anonymous, the only thing I saw was maybe more hair flips than actual things, done in the match. And also the short socks and the small shin pads as well. He still looks like a player that's all gear, no idea really when I've watched him.
He looks like he's going on holiday there, get the legs tanned for the girls and stuff. Honestly, what did someone say in the chat yesterday? 35 million, then another 35 million in English tax, and then 35 million for his haircut. It's a fucking... honestly, if we spend anywhere over 20 million on this kid, I'm going to lose my mind.
Spurs Army, Dave saying, stop disrespecting Brennan Johnson. He hasn't even spent 2 full seasons at the club, and he's registered 35 goal contributions.
Stop
disrespecting him. Joint most assists in 23-24 season. Our top goal scorer in 24-25. And then he's bagged a brace in previous 2 Premier League wins. He's lethal. Dave, got to stop disrespecting Brenaldo?
Yeah, I mean, look, he turns up against Southampton and Ipswich and teams like that. I get it, but it's a lot of the bigger games where he's in the starting lineup, and I find his overall contribution underwhelming. Look, if what Brennan Johnson is currently doing, on the football pitch, in terms of his whole performance, then don't moan why we are where we are, because that's a part of the problem. The reality is, yes, he's putting up numbers, but it's the other side of the game where he's refusing to track back, gives away so many stupid free kicks. A lot of the time he's underwhelming, and then he turns up on a little purple run and then he goes hiding again for a long time. I'm sorry, but that's not good enough. If we want to compete for trophies, you need a guy that's at it week in, week out. And this is what we need to get to understand at Tottenham. We're sitting here all the time protecting mediocre players, but when it comes to our best players like Romero, Harry Kane, fucking get him gone out of our football club, and we wonder why we have what we see on the fucking football pitch. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely insanity. The reality is, Johnson is putting up great numbers. Fair play to the kid. Has he probably proven to someone like me that he can be kept around as a squad player? Yes, 100%. But the reality is, a guy that's starting in that position, I need more from in terms of his all-round play. Johnson is a player that this season has looked after himself. He comes in and finishes off everyone else's move. When it comes to actually creating moves for other people, he's proven he can't do it. And I'm sorry, but a player has to be able to show that as well. Mo Salah doesn't just survive off scoring goals. He also creates for other people. And I'm absolutely fed up with the, we sit here and we give up, Lo Celso scores, Dave, sign this apology form. And it's like, no, because he's not going to do anything else this season. And I'm fed up with it. There's more defense of our mediocre players than there is our big players. As soon as we get a big player, he wants to win trophies, now fuck him out the football club, and then we don't win trophies. Work that one out.
Well, the other thing with Johnson is I think he's a great example of someone, right, who you might find who in the stats looks very good, but then the actual seeing eye test is just, completely different story. He is someone that I find to be a bit of a conundrum that way where, the seeing eye test, he doesn't really pass. But then when it comes to the stats, he does. It's a conundrum. Brendan Hamilton or Michael Hamilton saying, is Brendan Johnson the best finisher at the club? Maybe so at this moment in time. Maybe so. At least he knows how to put himself in the right areas. And then Zeus saying relegated 4 times. Aaron Ramsdale. There you are. Stick that one. And then this was, again, one of the things on Ange's treatment of Mathys Tel and Archie Gray is diabolical did all that effort to sign Mathys just to start a 32-year-old son over him every single week. As for Archie, he doesn't even seem to acknowledge his existence as soon as we no longer have injury problems. I'd much rather him play in his natural position, especially when his competitions are scrubs like Bentancur and Basuma. Well, people are allowed their opinion, of course, but I just have to disagree, especially on the Mathys Tel part. I don't think we've disrespected him in any way. Maybe Archie Gray you can make somewhat of a case for, but I don't even know if it's that strong of one at the end of the day. And then with Mathys Tel, to say it's been diabolical, I mean, geez, that's a bit extreme.
Look, the reality is, Mathys Tel walked into this football club and had minutes straight off the bat. He had a run of games straight off the bat. He didn't do anything. Look, I still maintain the club should never have gone after a 19-year-old with a lack of first-team experience to come in here and say, we need you to go and score us goals to keep us in all the cup competitions, push us up the league, and assist them as well. It was very unfair on Mathys Tel. But the reality is, when he first came in, Postecoglou gave him a run of games, even if it's, he needed to, fine. But the reality is, the player didn't take the minutes. What do you expect Postecoglou to do after that? Give the guy charity minutes? I'm sorry, I'm not having it. It's not good enough. When it comes to Archie Gray, I would actually argue, I think, the fact that Postecoglou has said to Archie Gray, out of all the other midfielders, you can do centre-back, you can do full-back. I actually think it highlights, the trust that Postecoglou has in Archie Gray to a large degree, but also the faith that he has in his ability. I think Archie Gray has answered that tenfold, 100%. But the reality is, and I've always maintained, Romero and Van de Ven coming back, everyone else is going to vacate back to the bench because of how much better they are than any other partnership we've seen. And you can see that as soon as Romero stepped back in and Van de Ven, they're higher up the pitch, cutting the ball out at source a lot more rather than letting them get into our box and just taking free loads on our box like we've seen for months and months on end. So I understand it, but the thing is with youngsters like Archie Gray and all, it's something that Ferguson used to do. Put them in the team, take them out. Put them in, take them out. Keep them hungry.
Yeah. Maybe there's a case there slightly for Archie Gray. I think Bentancur played quite well, against Southampton. I think he's been a little up and down of recent Bentancur, but I personally believe there's a top-class midfielder in there, and he also has far more experience than anyone else of the midfield options at the end of the day. So I don't think Bentancur is a scrub. Basuma maybe.
Could have brought Gray on for Basuma, though. Yeah, instead of Basuma. I do agree with that.
I just wanted to share this one. It's one of my favorite Paddy Power memes of all time. Southampton have been relegated to the championship with 7 games still to play. At least their fans have been managing their expectations since August. This is one of the best ever videos that they created about relegation teams coming up and down. Darth Craven, Danny Rose looked like he's about to deliver bad news to Darth Vader.
What is he dressed in?
I don't know. He looks like he's Captain of the Titanic or something like that with that outfit.
Looks like something out of a World War movie, for fuck's
sake. It really does. It's quite audacious, but fair play to you, Danny. And then that will be it, everybody. Now we'll go over to the Big Up platform. Really appreciate you guys for supporting us over here. Thanks for joining the stream. It will be pinned at the top of the chat, as you can tell. The Big Up platform is going to be the place for us when we do these sort of all-encompassing match recaps. So do join us for it, and you help us out a ton by doing it, and we really would appreciate it. But Dave, any final words from yourself there?
No, look, we are going to try and get into more habit of whether we win or lose doing these Twitter reacts. We usually only save them for when we win. But look, I hope people enjoy them. If there is stuff that you would like us to react to, whether it's your own stuff or stuff you've seen, feel free to at us both of our socials. Get involved with us on these shows. That's what we're looking for. That's what we want from it. And thank you very much for tuning in. And I would really appreciate if you can follow us over to Big Up just to maybe have a look and see what we're offering over there. It's free for anybody to tune in. Basically what we're going to do is they break down all the match clips, the best highlights from yesterday's game, and we'll sit there a bit like Monday Night Football style. We'll go through it, pause it, pick out things and sort of move on. So I'd appreciate if you haven't, give us a chance over there, tune in and see what we can offer you.
And then there will also be a fan show just afterwards as well. So join us over there, and then follow us over to the fan show afterwards. Thank you guys for supporting the channel. See y'all very soon in just a couple of seconds, basically, over on the Big Up platform. See you very soon, everybody. Come on, you Spurs.